Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to your post-match Raw on AI Pro, podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. I'm Trev Downey, and joining me to give their immediate reactions to Arsenal 3, Liverpool 2 in the Premier League from the Emirates Stadium are Dave Hendrick and Hari Sethi. Dave, that sound that we can all hear is the last remnants of people's hope around this league campaign dissipating, I think. A lot of air gone out of a lot of tyres if they weren't already flat.
Yeah, well, you'd hope that the last remnants are gone. They should have been gone a couple of weeks ago. It's been very clear since about 5 minutes into the Fulham game that something was wrong, and nothing has happened since to change that. People got a false sense of we're back because we beat a very mediocre Rangers team who would struggle in the Championship. And, you know, chickens came home to roost today. Anybody with half a brain could have warned Jurgen that that midfield pairing would not work against Arsenal because of one specific individual. And it took less than a minute for that reason to get highlighted. And that carried on as a factor in the game. Klopp made bizarre changes through the game. But it must be said, like, there's going to be a lot of fawning and fluff over Arsenal. The bottom line is we're awful at the minute. This is the worst Liverpool team in 7 years. The best Arsenal team in God knows how long. And yet they needed two really, really dodgy VAR decisions to beat us. And not just to beat us, but to actually avoid defeat. So, you know, as bad and all as we are, and as bad as that performance by Liverpool were, that's the team who are top of the league. And yet we play that game 9 more times and we probably get at least a couple of draws and a couple of wins. So, I don't know. We were awful. That's the be-all and end-all. And the blame must be put squarely at the feet of the manager for his team selection, the changes he made, and the blind loyalty he continues to show to one specific individual who has done nothing to warrant that loyalty.
It's hard to argue with any of that, Harry. And when you think about whatever excitement you might have had about the consistency of going with a new approach for 2 games in a row, the ongoing whatever it is between Klopp and his single most effective midfielder for the last X amount of years and most successful midfielder in terms of trophies won is a worry, regardless of whatever else you want to say. The concept of it just simply being formulated, well, that goes out the window when you look at some of the other performances who don't seem to be rewarded with the same hook that Fabinho's gotten. So that is a worry in and of itself. The other point there that Dave raises is just that, you know, there is something just askew and has been. You don't need a sixth sense to pick up on it. It's been pretty evident from the start, a looseness to our play, the intensity, famed intensity in absentia, and a lack of energy in almost all the things that we do, and pace in the way that we operate. All of those things are crucial elements of the identity of this club under Klopp. And I mean, we've seen the manager literally shaking his head and going, well, we're going to have to reinvent ourselves. The sooner that happens, the better, Harry.
Yeah. I try and avoid being reactionary, Trev. I mean, I think you probably know that by now. I'm sure the listeners know that by now. But yeah, I'm quite alarmed. I'm quite alarmed by what I'm seeing, because it does. I feel like a lot of the blame really does fall at the feet of the manager here, because there's only so much time that you can berate players for. Perhaps it's legitimate to blame certain players for not maybe putting in the same level of effort. I think there are a couple on that team that need to be looked at in terms of, it does seem as though they're ramping themselves down a little bit, and you wonder why that is. But largely, I mean, the issue this season is like we've tweaked this system for certain reasons, and I'm sure there was logic or logical thinking behind why we've done that. I think Dave's talked about the system that we've maybe been trying to implement of Pep Blinders, which it seems to be that. Didn't really work, and I think one of the large reasons why it didn't work is we didn't really have the personnel to enable us to do that. It's questionable as to sort of whether or not we actually could implement that style in the Premier League anyway. And we allowed the engine room of our team to rust effectively, because it's probably the key component in that word intensity that you mentioned is the engine room of our team. It's why when everything changed was when the spine was reinforced with Fab, with Virgil, and with Alisson obviously, but Fab being that huge addition in midfield. We've seen sort of the impact that Thiago's had in that midfield as well. We saw the impact Ginny had in the past, the impact Henderson's had a long time in the past as well. It feels that we've allowed that to drift, and as a result, we found ourselves sort of drifting through the season, surprised that things weren't going well. We changed it again against Rangers, as you highlighted, Trev, probably average championship level team. Was quite surprised really by the level of loving I saw after that game for Jordan Henderson. And again, it's going to be hard not to make it a pod about him, because he is obviously a large reason behind this, but was surprised by the loving because, I mean, we have to be honest, it's Rangers. And yet I come away from that game and I feel like I felt with a number of other games this season, the United loss as well, teams not having to play that well really to beat this Liverpool team. Liverpool giving away cheap, stupid goals, largely in the same areas as we've seen. I thought today they were also not helped by some pretty dreadful refereeing as well. But you're going to get that down the road. But I'm alarmed because the last 20 minutes of that game, Trev, some of the decisions we saw that were made, and we needed to get back into the game eventually. And Jota's on the bench, and our golden boot out of 3 out of the last 4 seasons, like the player we were delighted to sign on to an extension, the best player on our side is on the bench and has seemingly been marginalised by the system that we're trying to play. So there's a lot of things there. I know I've rambled on a bit, not plenty of easy answers, but yeah, I think it's pretty alarming. I don't see where it clicks.
I'm glad you flagged up all the things you did, because we can't ignore them. They are going to be a great deal of elephants in the room at the moment that need addressing, and that's really what we try to do here on the show. And before we get into the details of the match, which will expose all of the points made by both Dave and Harry there, let's just take a quick look at how we lined up. We've alluded to Liverpool's lineup already, alluded to the fact that it was unchanged from the Rangers victory, with Alisson, Trent, Matip, Van Dijk and Tsimikas, with Henderson and Thiago, and then Salah, Jota, Diaz and Nunez, and it's all very exciting and all the rest of it. And we can talk about how and whether that worked or not. Our bench on the day has Kelleher, Gomez, Fabinho, Konate, Milner, Firmino, Elliott, Carvalho and Phillips. And exciting aspects of the day for me, the continued contribution of Bobby Firmino, whether from start or from the bench, is a little positive, and the return of Ibu Konate, who was on the pitch barely a few moments when he was making vital interceptions, basically on the goal line, clearances and blocks and stuff. These are good things, I guess, and we can get to them as we go through the details of the match. But I'd like to look at the Arsenal team with you. Both of you have alluded to, while the fact that they are good, they're perhaps not as stellar as their positions warrant. I can't help, lads, but when I look at that team and see Martinelli, who we're linked with, and see Saka, who we've been linked with, and think, my God, how good would they be in our team? And we've sort of started to cycle backwards as they bomb on and become part of this, exciting, if nothing else, Arsenal team with a lot of young talent in it. And they started off with Ramsdale. They had Ben White, Saliba and Gabriel and Tomiyasu. Then they had Partey and Saka, Odegaard, Xhaka, Martinelli and Gabi Jesus. So let me start with you, Dave, on them. You look at their bench, they can bring on the likes of Nketiah and Tierney, who are solid players. They brought on Vieira as well at one point. And then they've got Lokonga, Holding, Turner and Marquinhos and Nelson making up the numbers there on that bench. In terms of them as the real deal, in inverted commas, they have gone back top now with that win, for all the fawning over Manchester City and the scariness of their cheat code striker. It is still Arsenal top. There have been questions asked about whether or not they were playing the kind of opposition that would warrant them being taken seriously in that position. I don't know if we currently count as that type of opposition, but as you pointed out, they did have to dig it out. It was
dug out for them.
Yeah, there was a big degree of luck in their favour. Are you taking them seriously yet as potential title shake-up candidates, or is that just
no, not even a little bit? No. They won't get within 10 points of City by the end of the season. They played Palace first game of the season. Palace had no pre-season. They played Leicester, who are the worst team in the league this year. They played Bournemouth the week before we beat them 9-0. They played newly promoted Fulham. I know we drew with Fulham, but they're still newly promoted Fulham, and they need a lot of luck to beat them. They played an awful Aston Villa team. The first good team they played was United, who schooled them. Then they did beat Brentford. That's fair play. But, you're then 7 games into the season, you've played one team likely to finish in the top 8, and you've lost to them. Then they played Spurs, and to their credit, they did deserve the win against Spurs, but I'd love to have seen what would have happened in that game if the Emerson red card doesn't happen on 62 minutes, because it was shaping up for a good last half hour. And then they play us. And yes, we will finish somewhere in the top 8, but we are awful at the minute. And we were awful today. And yet they still struggled and needed a massive dig out from VAR. There's a lot of good players in that team. I do very much like some of their players. Wouldn't be keen on Ramsdale. But I do like Ben White more as a right back than a centre back. I think Saliba's got a big future. I think Gabriel is capable of being good, but he's also error prone. Tomiyasu is excellent. Of that defence, he is, by a considerable margin, the best defender of the 4. He's obviously a lot better on the right than on the left. Thomas Partey is a good player. It's just very questionable whether he should be allowed to play football at the minute, given what's going on. Granit Xhaka is still Granit Xhaka, and regardless of the fact that he's in good form, he's still Granit Xhaka. We've been watching this guy play in this league for 6 years. He didn't all of a sudden become a world-class player. He's still the same player he was for the last 6 years. We just gave him all the space in the world today. I love the front 4. Saka is one of my favourite players in the league. I think he is absolutely sensational. I really like Odegaard. Martinelli is an outrageous talent. And Jesus, while I'm still not sure he's an out-and-out 9 that can get you where you want to go, there's just little parts of his game that I love. Like his dribbling is very Suarez-esque. His cry-arsing and blatant feigning of injuries, very Suarez-esque. If you look at that bench, I mean, Kieran Tierney's a good left-back. Fabio Vieira is a very talented playmaker. None of the rest of them would make our squad. Nketiah is okay. Holding's bang average. Soares is well past his best. Lokonga is bang average. Reece Nelson hasn't developed. Marquinhos is a bit of an unknown. And Matt Turner isn't better than Queeving, let alone Ali. So, you go man for man, and we lined up in the same shape as them today. Like, realistically, how many of their players that started today get in our team if our team is playing well? Now, Thomas gets in over Henderson, but he doesn't get in over Fab. I would take Odegaard or Saka over Jota as a 10. And I think that's it. I do think that's it. You look at our team, we've got Fab, who's been our best midfielder of the Klopp era, sitting on the bench. Kanate sitting on the bench. Bobby sitting on the bench. I just, like, when you're playing 4-2-3-1, you need to play with somebody in that number 10 position who can link play. And I know Jota got an assist today, but he is not a technically proficient player. We left better players on the bench than were starting for them. Fab, Ibu, and Bobby, in my view, all start. Maybe not Bobby, but Fab and Ibu certainly start for them. And yet we've got them sat on the bench. Their lack of depth will hurt them over the season. They're one injury to a key player and they will struggle because they just don't have the replacements. They've got a bit of depth at fullback. That's kind of it. They've got Vieira if anything happens to Odegaard. That's kind of it. Like, if Saka or Martinelli gets hurt, they don't have the players to come in. If Jesus gets hurt, you're going to rely on Eddie and Nketiah. They're definitely more of a threat for top four than I thought they were. But look, we've seen teams start the season really, really well in the past. We saw Leicester a couple of years ago start the season really, really well and then bottle it. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Arsenal end up fifth, because we're still a better team than them. City are a better team than them. And I think Chelsea and Spurs are still better teams than them. Arsenal just in better form at the minute. And Arsenal haven't had any disruption. And they have spent a boatload of money. Like, they'd want to be somewhere there or thereabouts in the mix for top four with the sheer volume of money that they've spent. Like, you look at that, Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Tomiyasu, Thomas Partey, Odegaard, and Gabriel Jesus. They've all arrived in the last 3 years. And then you've got a couple on the bench, the likes of Vieira, Lokonga. They came in the last couple of years as well. I just, if you're going to spend that type of money, you should be good. Like, they've spent more money than anybody. So you should be in the mix, but I just don't see it happening for them over the course of the year. It'll get tougher when the Europa League ramps up into more difficult games and he can't just rotate and play the second string because they're playing some, team from Norway or somewhere. When he has to start playing his players more frequently, and after the World Cup, the league gets a lot more frequent as well. You're not getting a week between games to plan. I think that's where they'll get found out.
You're right. I think that squad does look a little anemic when you break it down and go into it a bit, and pressure on it would definitely cause them to fall away. Speaking of potentially anemic squads, we now have, according to our manager, both Trent and Diaz injuries not looking good. And Harry's pointed out that Diaz is knocking around the mix zone on crutches there. So that's tremendous news. Harry, I do want to give you a chance to talk about Arsenal really quick before we get into the match itself, because obviously you'll have had a look ahead to it. And having gotten the perspective of an Arsenal supporter, and I know, much to your chagrin, you are blessed with a goodly amount of them in your extended family and friend group. So there must be a degree of delight. Is there any realism there? Because you see an awful lot of fan groups get carried away, and of course, Arsenal Fan TV, I think, gives a jaundiced picture, I'd imagine, of what Arsenal fans actually are. But I have seen, just again, and it's a fake sort of it's probably a fake sample, but my God, there's a lot of getting carried away going on. And if even half of what Dave was saying there comes to fruition, they might end up with a little bit of egg on the face. What do you think is the general take? Are they really considering themselves to be in the shake-up?
My guess, Adam, he certainly didn't. He seemed to be a bit more level-headed in terms of maybe a bit cautious based upon past experience of how Arsenal had been. There are a couple of shouts in there. I mean, obviously, I think that there's a discussion at the moment that Saliba is the next, is the second coming of Van Dijk. And so I said to him that basically, you have to wait until fans start celebrating when players dribble past your centre back until you can sort of say that Saliba's reached that level of sort of rent-free living inside people's heads. But looks very good. I think I'm probably similar with Dave in terms of thinking there's a lot of talent in that squad. I think, being fair about it, Arsenal as a fan base online, I think they are one of the more erratic, and I'd say in places quite delusional fan base. And again, I'm sure people get wind up about that. Every fan base has that section of their fan base online. Arsenal's is pretty bad. It does seem to be quite bad. But I don't know how carried away they're getting. I have seen some league shouts. I'm sure that, as you mentioned, people in my extended family will be, if they're still on this wave, quite hopeful about that. I don't quite see it myself. They don't have the steel in that team, or really the real cutting edge. I think up front to sort of sustain a title challenge like that, especially when they're up against sort of the state-backed club. It's very difficult to compete with them and the cyborg, obviously. But a talented team. There's been good work going in there to make them sort of diet Man City, if you will, based on how they try and play. I think there's there's players in there that I'd love to have in Liverpool's team, in terms of Saka and Martinelli, into the talents you could only imagine sort of how we could mould those. But I don't quite see it, really. I think they're a good top four side. They look at the moment. I think they'll probably finish third or fourth, and maybe there'll be some a strong points total for those finishes. But I don't quite see it. I think when they have played teams that have been a bit more tactical now, so they haven't shot themselves in the foot like we did today, or get handed a helping hand from the ref, they have found it a bit tricky. So let's see what happens with the added European pressure that they'll feel through the Europa. And also what will happen when inevitably there's a couple injuries, right? A couple injuries to some of those key players. Let's see what happens. But for me, top three, maybe, if they do everything right. But top four is what they're fighting for this season.
Stay with me. We'll have a look at the opening goings of this match today.
Sure.
It was obviously quite a bit to talk about right from the very start. Full disclosure as well, my seemingly endless issues around internet signal caused me to have very, very patchy coverage for the first 14 minutes or so. So I was aware that we had gone down in the first minute, and it just cut out just as they were beginning the celebration. I missed then the 5 minutes that followed, frantically trying to change. So just to go through those first 15, but we can't really, because we have to stop in that first minute, Harry, and we have to see and talk about how within that first minute, Martinelli has put them 1-0 up. Now, basically, there's a loss of possession by Liverpool, which is punished instantly. Martinelli gets onto a very nice through ball by Odegaard, who had taken his time and had released the pass very nicely. And Martinelli strides onto it and finishes it past Ali, coming in from the left with his right foot. I think there was a VAR check for offside, but it stood anyway. Now, an awful lot of people are going to read a lot into the coughing up of possession, which happened on a regular basis as this match played out. Where did you find yourself with the multiple replays apportioning blame around the concession of that? Because to me, I have to say, and this goes back to the manager as well, if we're going to be doing anything in games at the moment, it must be high levels of concentration and effort from minute one. Was it a case of just overcommitting and being caught with a classic counter, and do we have to hold our hands up, or do you see more issues around it than that?
I think we got caught. In those moments in games, you see sides that are not intense enough, if we're going to keep throwing that word out there, because it's becoming sarcastic. We've seen us punish sides in the early moments of first half, second halves, right before half time. You do sometimes see sides that are careless and don't have enough defensive protection, really, or that's not foremost in their minds, get punished in those moments. Admittedly, conceding in the very first minute is something that's galling to take, especially when you've had a manager coming out and talking about defending the shit out of situations for the remainder of the season. Especially galling that it came from exactly the same channel area that we've seen ourselves concede from multiple times this season. Seen Trossard had a great deal of fun in that area of the pitch when we played Brighton in the last game. So I think we'll probably go on to talk about it, but I thought we responded well to that. I think that there were positive things about the shape. I thought there were positive aspects of the performances of the midfield in moments in that game. But it just comes down to, I just think that right side is just not good enough. I think even prime Henderson, to be honest, I think is somebody who was never that defensively minded. I think we just need a more tactically, physically switched on player in that role. Not to say that it was entirely his fault. I thought we gave it away cheaply. We put ourselves under pressure early in the game. They were aggressive. They were pressing us, but it's just so poor. I mean, this is the sort of thing that you imagine has been drilled into them on the training ground, drilled into them before the game. They're all speaking to each other, geeing themselves up about how to start positively, and then it's just a bit casual and it's a bit laboured. And I'm sure that there's an element of luck in there as well, but they just slice through us. And then yet again, we've got this mountain to climb where they can effectively, whatever their game plan would have been, they can change it. They can sit deep and look to counter us. And it's quite tricky, tightrope to walk. So, yeah, I thought there were things in that goal that were indicative of the issues we've had all season. I also think there's elements of fortune in there as well that's specific to this game. So, yeah, when it rains, it pours.
There was a horrendous stat offered by the lad you can always count on to cheer you up when it comes to little nuggets about Liverpool, which was basically Tyler saying that at one point there that Liverpool have spent more moments or minutes behind in matches just 8 games in than they did in the entirety of last season.
Martin was on good form, wasn't he? I thought he was obviously enjoying the Jesus has risen line, a bunch of other crap.
Yeah. It was pretty classic, Tyler. All right, but I just thought that in and of itself as a stat is just a horrendous depiction of the season so far. And you know what? The bigger scheme of things here, I'll bring you in on this, Dave, as well, to just give your reflection on the first 15 minutes or so, if you want to talk about that goal, because the only other things of note that I have were that. I know Luis Diaz picks up a yellow card on 6 minutes, and in terms of our management of those opening 15 minutes, I would have thought the second 10 minutes of the opening 20 weren't as bad for us, but those first 10 or 12 were pretty lame. But overall, we have only 8 attempts in the whole game. You think, okay, that's pretty bad. We have 57% of the ball. Arsenal only manage 11. And we know that a couple of those are gifted to them by certain decisions. So it's just again, there's a lot more nuance around this game than just simply that final score, for sure. Is there anything else that you want to pick on from those opening few minutes? Like I said, the only other thing I can see is that there is that moment on 14 where Jota is trying to get the ball across, and it seems to be pretty much a hand to ball scenario from Gabriel that, I mean, no matter how many times I've watched it now, I can't really understand anything getting given but that. And it's very hard not to take out your martyr complex and give it a bit of a shine up when you see stuff like that, Dave.
I'm sorry, the 2 of the biggest moments of the game are in that first 14 minutes. That is 100% a penalty, and nothing is going to convince me otherwise. There is no reason for him to have his hand in that position. He's not putting his hand there for balance or any other nonsense that any of the commentators tried to claim. I had Graham Lasso on commentary, which, as you can imagine, was an absolute joy. And he was like, oh no, he has his hand there for balance. Nonsense. Is he leaning against an imaginary wall? Absolute nonsense. That is handball. That should have been a penalty. And as Harry points out, Diaz did exactly the same thing 20 minutes later and got given a free kick against him. But, I mean, we have to talk about this goal. This is fundamental, rudimentary stuff. The most basic thing you will ask from your holding midfielder when you play 4-2-3-1 is to pick up the runs of their number 10. Not only does Henderson not pick him up, he actively runs away from him.
It looks bad.
Actively runs away from the player he should be marking. There is no reason at all for him to go towards the ball.
Well, here's the question. Where is he going on that? Where is he going to ball? Is that what he's doing? Because does he have an opportunity to even get there? That's what I'm looking at.
He's never getting to that ball.
Yeah, so I don't get it, man.
Never.
I don't get it. Yeah.
And if he's going to do what he does, then he needs to block the passing lane to Odegaard. But he doesn't do that either. And because he doesn't do that, they then have an overload. Now, it's not helped by the fact that Mo doesn't track well enough, but that's irrelevant because it's not Tomiyasu who scores. By Henderson not tracking his man, and it is his man because he is beside him and skips around him and runs away from him in the middle of the park. By him not doing that, one of the back four has to step out and meet Odegaard. And the way Odegaard is running, it has to be one of Matip or Trent. And because Matip is the one marking Gabriel Jesus, it has to be Trent that steps out to meet him. And unfortunately, Trent taking that step forward leaves a big run of space for Martinelli to run in behind. But that doesn't happen if we're not asking Henderson to do massively important or impressive things here. We're asking him to simply do his job. Like, it's the most basic thing in football. Just do your fucking job. And he doesn't do it. And he cost us 2 goals with his ineptitude defensively against Brighton. And a minute into this game, he cost us another one by not doing his job. Just track the runner. If you track the runner, after you skip round him, you're between him and the ball, which means the ball can't get to him. All you need to do is stay in front of him. Yeah. And he didn't. He abandoned ship to go and look for the ball that he was never going to get near. They played it into Odegaard. Trent has to step out. I'm not having Trent been blamed for that first goal. There's a portion of the blame for the second goal, obviously, that will go to Trent, but not on that first goal. He has to stop and step out because Henderson has left Odegaard, and Odegaard is running with the ball at his feet, with 2 players to his left, with a striker in front, and absolutely acres around him.
You know, that it's an obvious flaw that should be seen by most when the walking top man suit that is Jamie Redknapp can point out exactly what you've pointed out, and it's not, you know. It
and you know what? It was really nice to see one pundit have the bottle to call him out, while the others sat there with one thumb in their mouth and the other one up their arse waiting for someone to say switch. A bunch of mindless drones sitting in that studio, not calling out what's in front of them, instead choosing to follow a nonsense narrative about this young player at right back. This is the captain of Liverpool Football Club. This is the fellow we've all been told for years covers for Trent. Well, I can go and find you 100 clips of Trent being left 2 and 3v1 with his captain playing right side midfield, nowhere to be seen. Harry's right. Henderson's never been a good defensive player. We've been calling it out on this podcast for years. He's never been a good defensive player, but he runs a lot, and people think running a lot equates to defensive work. It doesn't. Go back and look at a bunch of the goals conceded last season, the season before that. You can find goals conceded in the title season and the Champions League winning season where he does exactly the same type of stuff as he does today, as he did last week, where he's not tracking his runner or he's passing them off to somebody that doesn't exist.
Yeah, look, if you tell a story often enough, it seems to stick. That's just the way of the world in 2022.
Well, see, he's a good white English grafter, Trev. And good white English grafters, they do their jobs. But he doesn't. He just doesn't do his job. He'll never get criticism because of the privilege that he has of being a certain demographic. A white English hard-working midfielder is what he's seen as. And he'll be exempt from criticism in the same way all the other players of that same ilk have been exempt from criticism for years and years and years.
Harry, let's take it, you and I, up as far as where something positive happens. And they do start to happen a little bit. Like I said, the second 10 of those opening, he was 70% possession for the Reds, for what that's worth, because almost immediately after. We saw a nice switch ball after a bit of a turn and run by Luis Diaz, who's obviously our brightest player in the opening goings. The move petered out. There was a dangerous Martinelli cross in 21 minutes, and then we saw Trent down Croc. Now there's a follow through in terms of a tackle, which basically takes his ankle out and rolls it really badly. It looked horrendous. I didn't think there was any way the lad was getting up. When I saw the replay, he did. He played on for a while, and he then eventually had to go off later on. The same thing happened with Luis Diaz. Same thing. Got injured, got up, got on with it, got another knock. Those two guys now, we are being told by the manager, don't look good in terms of their injuries. And whatever about maybe just for the lads' peace of mind as much as anything else, it possibly wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world to have a spell where Joe was playing instead of Trent. Losing Luis Diaz is an absolute nightmare. The one guy we can always count on to turn up and put in a really, really warrior-like performance. So it's a worry. In terms of what happens on the before the goal, we did see an opportunity for Darwin Núñez on 25 minutes. It was a fiercely hit shot from a tight angle over on the right side after Mo Salah had picked out his run. It was a nice run across the defence to find a bit of space and hit the shot basically back from where it came, back the opposite direction to where he was running. But the keeper parried it. A clear yellow for me as Thomas Partey took out Luis Diaz on 26 minutes. Nothing from Oliver, who had a really, really poor game. There was a bit of pressure and a cross by Tomiyasu, and then Jesus was dribbling over on that left side and hits a sort of low cross shot dribbler, which Ali gets down to. On 29 minutes, another great Núñez cross. He looked very bright in those opening goings into Luis Diaz, but it got blocked. On 31, Mo kind of drove a Tomiyasu shot wide of the near post over there on the right-hand side. And then on 33, we are level. And it's kind of, we had the impetus at that point, and it was, I think, a deserved equaliser. It was Darwin Núñez, Harry, a kind of percentage dink ball over the top by Trent, which wasn't actually going to pick anyone out, ended up being intercepted by their defender, but not quite accurately enough. Luis Diaz pounces on that miscontrol, takes the ball, drifts to the right and centres it beautifully for Darwin, who is arriving in the middle and slides it home, I think with the outside of his left foot, to finish well. I felt at that stage, I'll be honest with you, with the little head of steam that we were building up, it was no more than Liverpool deserved at that period of the game.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, just before we get to the goal, I mean, there are a couple of points in that period as well. I mean, I think you mentioned that tackle on Trent, and obviously he's eventually has to go off the pitch. That for me was another one of these decisions, right? Where you look at it and I'm told, I mean, I'm repeatedly told that intent doesn't matter, malice doesn't matter. It's what you do. It's have you been reckless? And you mean you're watching it, and it's like that's reckless. Like your foot's off the ground. Yes, it's 1 foot, but you've gone in. You very easily could have broken that guy's ankle if things had been different. If he'd really planted his foot on the ground, and nothing is given. It's not a yellow card for just to warn the player. I know you didn't mean that, but that was dangerous play. There's not even the discussion around it being potentially a red for violent play, whilst the player is down, holding his ankle, struggling to walk. There's seemingly no review of that challenge, which I just found amazing, really, to be honest. Again, you're hearing these shouts about he's not that kind of player, et cetera, et cetera. I really don't care. I've been told, I've been led to believe that doesn't matter. And if you're reckless and you're endangering somebody, the least you could sort of expect is that's going to get looked at. So I was really surprised that there was nothing there. Núñez, as you mentioned, looked bright. Diaz, as we talked about, sort of got a foul given against him for a handball, which is the identical thing that we'd seen sort of Gabriel get away with, I think it was. And then the goal, Diaz, very bright, very, as you mentioned, sort of pounced on it. It wasn't a great ball, but pounced on the chance that he saw, bursts into that sort of right-hand side, good cross. Núñez is doing what you want every poacher to do. And I thought, it looked really. I thought some really encouraging moments from Nunes over the past couple of games. The movement is excellent. He looks like somebody who, is doing all the right stuff to get into positions to have numbers of chances to, when his finishing improves, almost like the finish Bobby had later on in the game. There's going to be more goals there, so I was encouraged by that. And I agree with you, Trevor. We pushed them back. There was a nervousness that was creeping into their game. I thought we were really sort of asserting ourselves on them.
Which only makes it more disappointing, Dave, doesn't it, to see how the game progressed from that point? Because that's 33 minutes. And immediately afterwards, actually, I think it's a Henderson through ball, puts Luis Diaz in, and Saliba kind of eases him off it in a way that's quite...
He was offside, but can we just talk about that for a second? Because if he releases the ball at the right time, nobody's offside. Because Henderson holds on to the ball, Jota drifts offside, and that's what the offside gets given against. Like, entirely brainless. You've got their line high, you're moving onto the ball, and you've got two speedsters to just knock the ball in behind two. And yet he insists on taking 12 touches when all he needs to do is get it out his feet and play the ball. Shocking.
It's
not
frustrating.
To derail us, Trevor, as well. But I mean, we've on these pods, we've spoken about Hendo a lot and spoken about certain players and sort of the way in which they're not contributing the way in which we would like. But I think, like I said at the start, I'm not expecting us to have an answer to it in the next 5 minutes or whatever. But the thing that's worrying me is it's just like is that this isn't being seen, seemingly, because as you've all pointed out, you've got your best defensive midfielder sat on the bench, and he's been dropped seemingly over the past couple of games. And we're seeing the same errors, and that's alarming. I'm not expecting an answer from in the next 5 minutes, but that's what's worrying me.
To believe that perhaps our management structure are the same narrative merchants as we see on Twitter, especially the same old shite week in, week out. That's a worry, I have to say, because there's a reality bypass involved there that. It's hard to understand what it's about. But Dave, just to I know, sorry, Harry, but you see, we're coming back to it right almost immediately, which is why I'm trying to get through to the end of this half, because oh my God, the man is front and central again in a few minutes. And just to go through those last couple of minutes leading up to that incredibly disappointing end to the half, and like I say, we had our tails up. We should have been pressing home whatever advantage we had in terms of momentum, but no. On 41 minutes, we have to see Luis Diaz going off. And again, I think earlier on the initial injury he had picked up was basically a guy landing on him, and I think that was certainly part of the reason for him having to go off. That's 41 minutes when that change is made and Bobby Firmino comes on. There are 5 minutes added, and again, if early on, I'm saying one thing that Liverpool should have learned to do after all the horror shows of recent times is begin a game with discipline. Well, surely the same should apply to ending a half where you've just gotten yourself pulled yourself up by the bootstraps or whatever other cliches you want to use and gotten back into a game and we're actually looking the better team. But oh no, there is a nice little interplay by Tsimikas and Jota on the 45-minute mark. But then you go right down to the far end of the pitch. And for not the first time in the night, we couldn't clear our lines. It was like a clown show. Not one person could put their foot through the ball. Later on in the game, there's a really bad example of this where it's just embarrassingly awful, and like someone like there who's standing, like even Fab was half arse. At this stage, nobody can put their foot through the ball and just clear our lines on like I say, on that 45-minute mark. 48, Odegaard picks up a yellow card for a foul on Tsimikas, and the half should be damn near over. But on 49, we lose possession. Saka is the goal scorer. We lose possession in the middle of the park. Martinelli drives down the left up against Jordan Henderson, and Trent comes across from behind Jordan to help cover there. And he gambles that Martinelli's going to go outside. So Trent kind of goes scooting past Henderson on the outside. And it looks really bad because he's kind of overcommitted and then he's literally nowhere. And he stands out as the guy who has made the glaring error. Whereas at some point in that run from Martinelli, I would like to see the player who's tracking him just kick him up in the air.
Foul him.
But that didn't happen either. And the ball comes across and it's way too easy. It's way too easy for the tap in for Saka. It's depressing as hell. Really, really depressing to end the half in that manner. And like you said earlier on, there's a glaring error there by Trent in terms of judgment call that goes awry. But he's not the only one, you know.
No. So firstly, it's what, 48, 49 minutes when we get this free kick over on the left. Half time is kind of a minute away. You're away from home against a team who are, nominally top of the table to start the weekend. You probably shouldn't be sending most of your team forward for that free kick. You should probably just play it short and, get into half time 1-1, having gone behind and fought your way back into the game. And then they had taken control of the game for a period. You probably shouldn't be committing so many players up to their box. When you do, and it's a poor delivery by Costas that they cut out quite easily, you would really want your players who've gone forward sprinting to get back, and they didn't. They jogged back. Virgil being the one of the primary ones who was seen jogging back as that attack began for Arsenal. But regardless of either of those things, when that ball drops to Martinelli, he is, 10 yards inside his own inside our half?
Yeah.
And he runs unopposed into our box with Jordan Henderson backpedaling the whole way. Trent is covering Henderson, so he's not the last man. Henderson should be stepping in and fouling him. Try and win the ball, obviously, but if you don't win the ball, just grab him. Just wrap your arms around him and don't let him past you. And just take that yellow card. Take one for the team. But again, and we've seen this happen in a couple of other games this season as well, he just won't do it. He will not engage a player. So he backpedals and he backpedals and he backpedals. And Martinelli's delighted with himself just carrying the ball. They have Gabriel running from centre-back, by the way, having outstripped all of our players, heading for our penalty area. And they've got two other players coming up on the outside. And our players are largely jogging back. Trent gambles. Now, we don't know if he gambles because he's gotten a shout to go and help. We don't know if Henderson calls for him to come and help, or we don't know if he just gambles on it. But Trent gambles and he undercuts Henderson. Now, by undercutting Henderson, what I mean is Henderson is side on, he goes to Henderson's right shoulder to stop Martinelli going outside of Henderson and getting to the byline and cutting the ball back. As soon as he does that, Henderson should be holding his run so that Martinelli can't cut back onto his right foot and come back in towards goal. But Martinelli cuts inside. Henderson keeps running, heading for the stands, going in search of, halftime refreshment or something. And Martinelli cuts back inside and just plays a simple ball across, and Saka appears and taps home because Costas has had to go and cover Gabriel because Trent has gambled and gone across. Henderson goes that far in search of said beverage that he actually is the one that plays Saka onside, because Costas, credit to him, actually managed to step up or hold his position and let Saka run by him. And if not for Henderson going so far in a direction he should never have been going in the first place, Saka will be offside, or it would be very tight at the very least. So there are three mistakes there. Two of them are by Henderson. One, to not engage higher up the pitch and just foul him. Just fucking foul him. Two is Trent not getting across. And then the other Henderson one is when Trent comes across and he knows Trent is there, why does he continue to move in the same direction as if Martinelli's going to go on the outside? Your job now is to stop him cutting back in field. He gets sent off for a wander. It's appalling defending. And it's just, it's shocking how little effort there is from this team. Like, they all turn around, put their hands up in the air and start giving out to the linesman, completely unaware that it's their player who has, their captain who has played them onside. It's really poor. But, like, we used to see it with us when we would be defending a set piece and we would win that set piece and we would counter. And back in the good old days, you'd have Mo, you'd have Sadio, you'd have Ox, you'd potentially have Robbo, you could have Emre Can, all of them sprinting full force down the pitch to counter and expose a team that weren't getting back in transition. And it was the exact opposite of that today. Their lads were sprinting full pelt, length of the pitch, and ours just weren't getting back. And the ones that were already back just made a complete mess of it. But again, Trent will get most of the blame because he gambles and goes across, and the captain will be blame-free.
We're going to have to end up talking, I think. It depends, really. I said it there on AIP last night, and I think I might mention it to Jan as well. Depending on how these two results go, we're going to have some serious conversations about things across podcasts because the matches are going to become almost irrelevant. Because if we don't pull a big result out against Rangers in the week, that competition's looking dodgy. Whereas if we do, it offers a chance for salvation for the season. A heavy defeat against City, which, I mean, is highly possible.
Yeah.
And the lads are going to be looking around for the remnants of their hopes and dreams. So it just makes me wonder when I see stats like this being quoted by Cy Brundish there. Says Mo Salah had 3 touches in our attacking third over the game. Cy saying, you going to tell me Salah didn't want the ball, that Salah wasn't available to be passed to? He says you can't create a system that gets Mo only 3 touches in 71 minutes he was on the pitch. And this is what I'm getting at. I think there's like a lot of systemic chats to be had here, or chats about system, and the manager is going to be central to them. And just for the record, you're allowed to do that without, desecrating some sort of idol. We're just talking about football matches and decisions. So everybody wants to see Jurgen Klopp do the very best, and all these players do the very best. But we have to talk about it if it's not happening.
We're not putting them in a position to do their best. Like, we're just not. We're leaving Trent to expose. That's hurting him. We're not getting Mo the ball. Like, we're not giving the ball to our best player. Now, fair enough, a couple of times lads did try and hit the crossfield ball. I saw another stat from Cy. 2 successful switches of play.
Yeah.
Today we used to average about 17. But like, it felt like every single time we tried, Tomiyasu just stood in front of him, and because the fella's 6'2" and really good in the air, he just won everything. So why did we continue to do that rather than just try and get the ball in behind him and let Mo run onto it? It was bizarre. We've talked about this before this season. Mo is being completely isolated, and we're using him like he's Stuart Downing, stuck out on the wing, chalk on his boots, get the ball, cut inside, and play a 6-yard ball back to one of your midfielders.
That very thing you're talking about speaks to a low football IQ, and that's not what Thiago is, but he did it a couple of times. That's not what Virgil is. He did it a couple of times. It's like lads who are almost panicking because the system isn't working, and they just have to keep doing the system. It's very, very strange. And Harry, like, the second half begins, and I don't know where your hope levels were, but I mean, we do actually have a half decent beginning to this. There is, on 46 minutes, to be fair, a dangerous ball, which got in Martinelli versus Joe Gomez, who had come on for Trent at half time. And his cross caused a little bit of chaos. There was another one then where Martinelli had a cross to Odegaard, and Odegaard shot very tamely in a central position at Alisson, when a better finish could have seen them pretty much put the game to bed. There were a couple of offside decisions at that point, which went our way too, and I don't know. It was kind of notable a few times watching the movement of Joe Gomez. He was really almost exaggeratedly jumping forward to make sure that he was holding that line. And it seemed to work for us on a couple of occasions because, like I say, they began far the better in those opening minutes. But the silver lining is on 52, Bobby Firmino, who had come on towards the end of the first half, has put us level. There's decent play by interplay there with Thiago and Henderson in the middle of the park. A nice ball down the side of their defence by Jota. And Bobby took it in his stride, finished it beautifully back across the face of goal to the right corner with his left foot. It's a beautiful goal, really nicely executed. Everything about it was kind of picture postcard. And on the basis of those opening few minutes against the run of play, you'd have to say, I'm just going to take you up as far as where we bring on 68 minutes, another couple of subs, and then I'll finish the rest of the second half with Dave. Because apart from that, after the goal, we had that incident where I think Odegaard sort of collapses in a heap, and I think he's, if not feigning, he's definitely exaggerating, and then the play goes on because the ref doesn't stop it, and Gabby Jesus gets a wild elbow from Tsimikas to the head, and he seems to be out cold, but he's back up again on 59 minutes. So there's a couple of minutes there, 3 minutes at least, which we know are going to turn up at the end. 61 minutes, Xhaka, of all people, did Joel Matip up like a kipper with a bit of, back street skills with a Z. And then, being Xhaka, when he actually gets in and around, Joel blasts a shot wildly over from very close range. A lot of Arsenal pressure on 62-minute mark as well. Tsimikas actually with an overhead clearance on the volley. But thankfully there was a Saka handball in the lead up to that, because I think he might have gotten a free kick against him or something like that for a high foot. Anyway, I don't know how that would have worked. Joe Gomez did really well, I thought, versus Martinelli on about 65 minutes in a 1v1, and was looking comparatively solid. And then on 68, Kloppo does his substitutions, and for the second time in 3 matches, you're really scratching your noggin. Ibu Konate and Fabinho come on for Joel Matip. There's the obvious swap, and Mo Salah, which meant that we had the captain heading out to be our right wing threat for the rest of the game, where he proceeded to be, nominally that. So in that chunk, up as far as that double substitution, is there anything you wanted to pick out? Did you want to have a look back over the goal, or anything you wanted to mention specifically?
No, it was a good goal. I was happy to see Bobby continue this sort of this form that he's in, and sort of the ruthlessness in front of goal. I thought it was a nicely worked, good pass from Jota, really lovely finish from Bobby. So, I mean, we've sort of probably thinking about how the season's going to unwind now, and what we're going to be fighting for. So, I mean, as many of the people who want to chip in with goals, I'm quite happy for it, to be honest, at this stage. So, if Bobby's going to be that guy, fine. Whoever it's going to be, but that was a positive to cling on to, and sort of important after conceding that real gut punch before half time. I thought there was a positive sort of spell in that first half where we managed to assert ourselves back into the game. Again, you don't know how a team's going to react when you concede a goal at that time, right before the half. So that was positive to see. And I think there were moments in the game that I think Jota surprised me actually by being a bit more of an accomplished footballer than I necessarily thought he was. I agree with Dave. He's not got the skill set to necessarily be the best suited player for that role. If we're going to be doing 4-2-3-1, he's not a number 10. he's just not. But I thought he really did apply himself as hard as he could. Just for me, the game just changed quite dramatically after Diaz went off, to be honest, as well.
Yeah.
I think that we have no like for like with him, and I think to your other point, I think we really need to. We've spoken about Henderson quite a lot, and there's some systemic issues in the defence, but whatever we've done, and you imagine like whatever decisions we've made that have left us in the situation where our best player is so marginalised in games. And I'm listening to these pods, yours and Jan's and plenty of others, and I'm barely hearing Salah's name in these pods, and it's remarkable that he's become sort of so secondary. And the fact that you would take him off to come onto the subs and then move Hendo to right midfield, right wing, I thought was pretty scandalous bit of decision making, to be honest. And I think it's, as you mentioned, Klopp has been wonderful. 7 years with him, transformative journey so far for the club. But he's not beyond criticism, and I think some of these decisions really quite alarming. I mean, what are you doing there by taking Mo off? Fab coming on, fine, that makes sense. I mean, I think we all sort of would have understood if he came on for the captain. Even you can even sort of write it off at that point as, it's 70 odd minutes, captain's a bit tired, bring on Fab. So you can justify it. Kanate made no real sense to me, to be honest, because fine if you want to integrate him, but you'd imagine you want to give him a start, maybe against Rangers first. Nice easy game. He's not played this season at all. To throw him into that game, I think we all rate him highly, but to throw him into that game, that situation, as a young defender, I thought was just very, very weird to do that. Only unsettled us even more. And you mentioned some of those scrambles in the penalty area for us, and he was involved in a couple of them as soon as he came on. So yeah, really bizarre decision. The only sort of grace in that series of substitutions was I was just delighted not to see Jimmy come because I was fearing the worst of that situation. And God knows I love love me a bit of headband Milner in the right situation, but this was not that. But just very bizarre. And I'm not sure about you, but those subs, and then I think what happened afterwards, but those subs, they didn't give me a great deal of confidence that there was a ton of logic in those subs. It felt quite, let's try this. Let's try this this combination of pieces in these holes and see if it comes to help us. Because based on what the impact they made, wasn't great.
Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss to understand. I mentioned that Joel Matip got done by Xhaka there, but Joel's had one or two rugby showings of late. But I'm at a loss to be understanding what you're doing, changing a centre half, unless he's been absolutely appalling. And then the other one is really, 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 really hard to understand. Dave, the run up, do you know what, Harry? I'll probably be back to you for your wrap up thoughts, the way things are going to go now, because I think where there are incidents, there's only a couple really worth talking about between now and the end of the game. Gomez gets a yellow for time wasting on a throw in. 71, Ibu Konate does fantastically to block a dangerous ball in by Xhaka after Martinelli had kind of roasted us over there on that side again. On 72 minutes, they were pretty much besieging us, if we're being honest. And this is the one I was talking about earlier on. We just couldn't clear our lines. It was absolute comedy capers back there. Lads swinging at it, missing it, half clearing it to a couple of yards, and other lads hitting the back of other lads with just absolute clown show back there. And in that, on the back of that, there is a penalty in the middle of all that panic that we brought upon ourselves by not being able to make a simple clearance. I understand our identity, intensity, and all those other words of playing out from the back, but at times maybe just launch it. And because we don't, and because we are half-arsed in our attempts to get it away, the pressure stays, and it builds to a situation where there is a penalty shout against Thiago, which when I saw it, I thought, oh, this will probably get overruled, won't it? Because it doesn't seem to be. I know Klopp is very much of the notion that it probably shouldn't have been given, but given it was. Thiago's foot on Xhaka was the criminal in this case. I'll let you come back to talk about that VAR thing in a minute, Dave. Saka puts the penalty way low in the corner, impossible for Ali to get near. It's well executed. They have a couple of bits and pieces. We had a dangerous Núñez cross in 78 minutes. We bring on Harvey Elliott on 79 to have a run around for the last, what we would imagine was going to be at least 15 minutes. Tierney for Odegaard 2 minutes later. Partey puts a ball into Jesus on 84, and I'm literally looking at this going, how in the name of Christ is this possible? So Partey's sort of strolling around the middle of the park, and he dinks a ball into our box where Jesus is standing sort of, as we look at our goal, to the right of the penalty spot, and has time to just sort of look around and take it down. And I'm going, how is that possible when we are a goal down at that stage? It was simplicity itself. They owned the ball at that point, absolutely owned it. We were just not in it. Pathetic at that stage. There's a total cock up from us on 89 as Jesus got in between Virgil and Ali on just a simple ball over the top. The lads got themselves in a muddle and the queer fella gets in. He's down on the ground then again. 5 minutes are added. They bring on Nketiah looking to waste some moments for Jesus on the 90th minute. And they bring on Vieira as well for Saka in that time. But would you believe, if you haven't seen the game, we actually had the ability to play till 97. And there he is front and centre again right at the end when there is an opportunity as a ball drops in the box, a strikeable ball. It's, of all the people, it's the big man Hendo coming up to it. Of course his effort is blocked. I don't know if we deserve to be getting an equaliser at that point, because we had been so pathetic, I think, in that late stage of the match. Dave, there's probably some glaring omission there. Is there anything in specific you want to pick out of that section of the match?
Let me just run from half time. Odegaard has a great chance on the edge of our box after nobody tracks him, and he basically has a free shot at Ali and scuffs it. That should have been a goal for them. That was more abysmal tracking of runners by not number 14 this time. This was by Thiago, whose level just seemed to get dragged down by having to do all the work in midfield. Klopp made his changes, and he obviously made the change at halftime, brings off Trent. Apparently now because he's injured, and we'll see how long that one's going to be. It doesn't sound great, so remains to be seen how long he's out for. Gomez came on, and I thought he looked a little bit shaky until he settled in. Makes the changes to bring on Ibu for Matip, which I understood because I thought Matip had been poor, and Fab coming on. And you looked at it and you thought, surely he's going to bring Henderson off here. Like, surely to God, he is watching what the rest of us are watching, and he is going to bring this fella off. This fella that's already been at fault for 2 goals, this fella whose passing has been poor, this fella who has not won a tackle, not won a ground duel, not won an aerial duel, has 0 clearances, 0 interceptions, has done fucking nothing in this game. Surely he's going to bring him off. No, he brings off Salah, and he sticks Henderson right wing. And I'm convinced we're watching Kenny Dalglish in charge circa 2011-12. Don't understand at all what the logic was. And I would love to hear it from Klopp, what it was that he was thinking. We're poor, like you said. We're not even poor. We're pathetic in this spell. The penalty goal, it's a great penalty by Saka. Once he steps up, it's a tremendous penalty, really well struck. Keeper went the right way and still couldn't get close to it. But I don't understand how it's a penalty, Trev. First of all, we are the masters of our own demise here, as you said. Like, we have at least 3 good opportunities to clear that ball. At least 3. And we can't get the ball more than 30 yards from our goal. Fab has a chance to just put his foot through it, and instead he just sort of toe pokes it, and it gets cut out and they're back in. And I just don't know how it's a penalty. If there's contact, it is absolutely minimal. It is absolutely minimal. And Jesus has already made contact with the ball when Thiago makes contact with him and has lost the ball. He just throws himself on the ground, as he had done routinely. You mentioned that moment with Odegaard earlier on. Like, Odegaard is on the ground faking an injury. Jesus, he does get caught by Costas' arm, there's no doubt. But he goes down like Mike Tyson's after punching him clean in the chin and lies face down in the ground. The players obviously get really worried and start summoning people on to help him. And within a minute, he's up and sitting. Within another 30 seconds, he stood on the touchline having an animated argument with one of the officials about wanting to go back on. Like 2 minutes beforehand, he was seemingly unconscious on the floor, and now he's up and ready to go again. Like, absolutely bizarre that the referee just allowed this to go on and on and on. They were at it in the first half as well with Ramsdale faking injury because we'd gotten a bit of pressure on them and he went down and faked an injury to try and just kill the momentum. It's clever, to be fair, but, you know, it's a shithouse tactic. I just don't know how it's a penalty. I really don't know how it's a penalty. I don't understand Klopp's substitutions. I don't understand much of what happened in that second half. But then Klopp compounds things by bringing on Harvey Elliott for Jota and sticking him left wing. Like, he's left wing, Henderson's right wing, and you've got Darwin and Bobby up front. So you've got nobody who's really going to beat a man and put in a cross because Trent has gone off. So you've got Gomez at right back. Like, what was he thinking? If he can come out and just explain what he was thinking, taking off Mo, leaving Henderson on, and then playing Henderson for the 95 minutes.
You'll never hear it because he'll never be asked.
The fuck does he need?
He'll never be asked.
Like, what does he need to do to get the same treatment as other players get? Why is he held to so much lower of a standard than everybody else? There's lads on social media right now defending him, saying he did nothing wrong in the whole game, saying he did the right thing on the Martinelli or the Martinelli to Saka goal just before half time. What are you people watching? And why is it that if anyone else did what he did today, they'd be slaughtered? I've seen Naby Keita have significantly better games than that and get 5 out of 10 in the Echo. Like, it's maddening, absolutely maddening how this fella's allowed to just continually be bad. I said it the other day. The last time this fella was consistently good, the last time anyone can tell me the last time he strung 3 good games together was 2019. 2019. Since then, we've won a league title and a pandemic happened that took away over a year of everybody's life. That's the last time he had consistently good games, because he went to centre-back in that night. No, sorry, not 2019. 2020, I should say. 2020. And he'd been garbage that season. So, no, hang on, I am right. It is 2019. It is 2019. It's the before he got injured, so I'm wrong. It's what? February 2020? Was that when he got hurt? So you're looking at January 2020, the last time he had consistently good games. That's nearly 3 years ago. Nearly 3 years ago of this fella being either injured or really poor, or playing at centre-back and not knowing what he was meant to be doing, because he's not a centre-back, so you can't blame him for it. But you're looking at January of the title winning season.
I was going to say, Dave, I'm also worried at this stage. I mean, like, you talk about fans noticing it, and obviously fans are always going to have certain opinions and certain favourites, and you hope the coaching staff notice it, but surely the players
have to notice it, Harry. And this is the thing. I don't like. I'm literally. This is speculation. And let me just say, this is speculation. And Dan Rhodes, when you're putting out quotes from this game, do not put this one out because it is just speculation on a podcast. Do you wonder if certain players like Virgil and Ali and Fab and Mo and the lads that have been here for all the success have just taken a step back, or one or two of them have taken a step back and looked at the sheer volume of praise for the success that those world-class players were responsible for, that was given to Henderson and Milner, and thought, what the fuck is this? And when things go badly, it's those same world-class players who get all the blame, and those same two who contributed far less on the pitch get none of the blame.
And given what we said about Mo Salah and his personality and his desire and all that, what you could sort of glean from sort of the player we've seen for however many years now, I'd be very surprised. I really would. I'd be very surprised. Even he's a model pro, I believe all of that. I'd be very surprised if he's not sat somewhere after that game, and he doesn't have a word with the boss and go, "Sorry, boss. I mean, we needed to win that game, and I'm sat there." And the tactical change you've made is to play Hendo in my position. Can you explain it to me?
But the thing is, Mo is a fella who likes to get his flowers. Mo wants to be recognised for the contribution he has made to this team, and I think most of the others will as well. Surely to God, one or two of them have got to look around and look at that captain and say, that fella doesn't even play the same sport as us. But yet he got gifted Footballer of the year we carried him to the title. He's got a Champions League winners medal because of us. Last season we carried him, despite the fact he was awful, to an FA Cup and League Cup double. We would have won the league if not for him. And now we're being told that it's because of him and Milner and the standards they set, and they're naming fucking doors after them. And Pep and Linders, in his book Intensity, available at all good booksellers, is bigging the two of them up. Well, where's my praise? Where's the praise that I warrant for what I've done for this club, which is actually raise the standards, which is actually win major honours, which is lead this team or carry this team, in Mo's case at times, to major honours. One or two of those lads have got to be looking at this situation thinking, how is it that in 2022, those two who hold this team back get all of the praise and none of the blame? We get a fraction of the praise and all of the blame when things go badly.
And compound that with the fact that they're looking at us being linked with Tchouameni and being linked with Bellingham and seeing those things just fall away into dust when they could have had them as teammates.
Yeah, and hearing that there's no other midfielders out there who are better than these two.
Yeah. Yeah, it's anyway. Final wrap up thoughts from you in a second, Dave. Harry, yours now, my friend.
Yeah, I'd say there's a number. Unfortunately, I mean, I've not got. I mean, the only positives I'd really take from this is Darwin gets his goal, looked lively, and I hope he can take it. Take more leaps on from here. He's going to be very important for us this season, and it's important that we get him firing. Just as it's important that we get Mo Salah looking back to his best or just involved a hell of a lot more as well. I mean, however we have to amend the side now, I think, let's be realistic. I mean, Diaz being out, big blow. Trent being out for however long is a big blow. Artur, the mysterious Artur, who we never even saw, who was a midfielder brought in very late on because we later down as we'd made a mistake, and then brought in a midfielder who hadn't played for a while and has actually had some injury issues as well. And then he gets injured trying to wrap himself up to play our type of football. So I think we sort of got what we deserved there a little bit, unfortunately. I'd say disappointed that we lost the game, just focusing just on the game itself. I think we were unlucky to lose that. I don't think Arsenal were that good, to be honest. And there were a couple of refereeing decisions that come back to bite us, though. However, the same systemic issues are there, and as we've all discussed, our fear is that these issues don't seem to be really being recognised by the manager, because even though you're changing the shape, and I can understand the logic behind that, you are leaving in personnel there who are not really up to the level this season, and it's tiring to say it. And like just on that last point that we were talking about with players, being upset with different treatment and no meritocracy, I do not want that to be the case. By the way, I do not want discontent amongst the camp. No,
definitely not.
I want players to be united. That's going to help us get out of this. But I'd just be stunned if there's not some of that questioning going on, because it really does seem quite brazen at points. And this game and how it unfolded and the weird substitutions in the last sort of 20 minutes or so, I think will probably just shine a bit of a light on that. So, yeah, it's not great. And to be honest, I wasn't looking forward to this game, and I'm really, really not looking forward to the next game. So, whatever we can do to find a way through that game in some sort of positive result, if that's possible, that would be really great. If the lads could just come together and think about what that could be, even if we have to sort of change our style completely to something disgusting. I don't, whatever it needs to be to not come out of that game with what could easily be a hammering. I think we're all probably fearing that. There'll be a rival recon ahead of that game, which I'll be I'll be quite sheepish on, I imagine, ahead of the City game. But yeah, just overall, unfortunately, just disappointed that we've lost that game in particular, and yeah, worried about where the answers are going to come from.
Yeah, I think that's a very common feeling right now. And of course, when Harry talks about the next game, he's next one in the Premier League, which he's referred to there as the City one. Harry, Dave, and I will be back for in about 72 hours time for the Rangers chat. So hopefully that'll be a slightly more upbeat than this evening's has been. And Dave, your final thoughts to wrap up the show.
In spitballing about potential issues behind the scenes, and again, like Harry, you don't want that to happen, and really hope that's not the case. But there's definitely one or two of them that have sat at home and said to their wife or their mate, like, can you believe the credit that this fella gets? Like, we watch him in training, and like, you know, we have Fabinho and Thiago, and people pretend this fella even plays the same sport as them, let alone is on their level. It has to happen. Players are the best. Players know how good other players are. The shot, what was the shot, Trev? What was he doing? Put your foot through the ball. It drops to you with space on the edge of the box in the last minute. Just put your foot through the ball, and it's a weak, side-footed flick at the ball. Awful. Great to see Darwin score. That's the only real positive from today. Darwin scoring and that little bit of link up between Darwin and Diaz. And we almost saw it the other way around, Darwin to Diaz a couple of minutes earlier. That, I think, is a link up we will see an awful lot of over the next 5 to 7 years. Like, I could really see in a post-Mo landscape, Liverpool playing a shape that involves the front two, that's those two, and someone else on the left wing with Diaz more central. Because I really do think there's the possibility for their games to mesh brilliantly as a one up, one just off type. The Diaz injury is a big concern coming out of this one, as obviously is the Trent one. But at least with Trent, we do have Joey Gomez who can slot in there, and perhaps Gomez will do well enough that when Trent comes back, Jurgen maybe considers trying him in midfield, because could he do a worse job than what's been the right-sided midfield position this year? I don't think he could. Aside from that, like I said at the start, we were fucking awful today. Absolutely awful. That is a performance for those players to be ashamed of. That is an effort level for those players to be ashamed of. That is a managerial performance for Jurgen Klopp to be ashamed of. And like, I don't buy into this whole, seventh season syndrome with Klopp. But the Dortmund 7th year went bad, the Mainz 7th year went bad, and maybe that's just what it is, and maybe we just have to write this season off in terms of the league. But if we don't get top 4, I mean, you can forget about Jude Bellingham. I think people should probably forget about him anyway. If we don't get top 4, we're going to be looking at players potentially looking to leave, not players looking to join. And that would be absolutely disastrous. If you allow these teams, the likes of Arsenal, to get into the top 4 and then increase their pull in the transfer market, if they're willing to carry on spending the way they have been, that becomes a major issue for us. We remember when we, under Klopp, overtook United, overtook Arsenal, and they all thought, it'll only be for a year or two. And now it's been 6 years of them looking at us in envy. It doesn't take long for the tables to turn. And everybody at Liverpool, from the top down, ownership, Mike Gordon, Julian Ward, in particular Jurgen Klopp, and that group of players, they need to be taking a long, hard look at themselves and asking, how have we taken something that was going so well and made it go so badly in such a quick period of time? And there has to be answers. There has to be answers. Now, those answers obviously don't need to become public, but they have to have frank and honest discussions behind the scenes. Some major issues have happened at Liverpool. Something went wrong in pre-season for sure, because the players don't look right. They don't look like they're up to their normal speed. Did they get trained too much? Did they not get trained enough? Like, something went wrong in pre-season and has continued to go wrong. The tactical approach early in the year that was very much inspired by Pep and Linders was a disaster, and thankfully has largely been binned off. This 4-2-3-1 I do think can work, but it can only work with Fab and Thiago, or Fab and Naby. It's not going to work without Fabinho. It's just not going to work without Fabinho. And now we've obviously lost our primary creator in Trent. We've lost our outball in Diaz. It's a bit like losing your heart and your lungs in one fell swoop, you know. So we're going to be in trouble, and we may get mauled at City by City next week. We may well get mauled by them. Like, if Virgil and Joel play next week against that fella, the way they did today against fucking Permacry, we're going to get battered. We're going to get absolutely battered. And if Bernardo Silva is given the freedom of the park in the same way that Granit Xhaka was given the freedom of the park today, he will absolutely tear us apart. So I'm not in any way confident of that game. Rangers at least should be a straightforward win because they're not very good, but away at Ibrox in this level of form, who knows? If we don't get out of this Champions League group, though, fucking burn the whole thing down.
100%. That's the season over. From you this week, I presume the usuals, and particularly jaundiced attitude emanating from you over the course of the next few days. So do keep an eye out for the Daily Red, for Two Footed, and what else, Dave? Have you got coming up? Probably scouted for both.
Yeah, there'll be a couple of scouted, one for Rangers, one for, unlike Harry, who's more of a part-time podcaster, myself and Carl, we do preview pods for all the games. Not just the Premier League. So yeah,
can't wait to see the detail on Rangers.
I have many things to say about them. Yeah, there'll be two scouteds. There'll be a Daily Rage tomorrow, and then a Daily Red the rest of the week, and there will be Two Footed every day. And you know, at some point, Tandem's going to have to come out of semi-retirement and face me on an old school, because I've got a lot of shouting to do, and I prefer it when I get to shout at gags. That's my favourite podcast, is shouting at gags.
Yeah, I think he enjoys it as well. Yeah. I think Gags quite enjoys it, actually, to be honest with you. So yeah, okay. Well, we will reconvene this particular trio for the Raw on Rangers, and we will speak to you, like I say, in about 72 hours.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.